This is an excerpt of several paragraphs from Chapter 15, God's Great Tradition of Guru-Adepts, found in the book In God's Company by Brad Reynolds. In Buddhism, there has been a direct historical lineage of Buddhist adepts, who are spiritual descendants to each other, not merely a bloodline lineage, thus indicating a direct transmission from master to disciple, coming from the original Shakyamuni Buddha. Although hundreds of years apart, they still express the original enlightened realization of Shakyamuni Siddhartha, the Buddha, or Awakened One, the founder of Buddhism. For instance, nearly a millennium after the Buddha, the great Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava from the 8th century was a Maha-Siddha who rescued Buddhism from destruction in India by transplanting it into Tibet, the land of the snow. Padmasambhava was a living embodiment of the Mahayana Prajnaparamita teachings first expounded in India. In Tibet, his non-dual teaching took root by integrating the Buddha's Dharma with the indigenous, shamanistic Bon culture. Yet they too soon went through a period of persecution and devastation. A couple of centuries later, another revival occurred when the Indian Maha-Siddha Atisha, from the 10th to 11th century, returned to Tibet to transmit and re-establish the intact lineages of Buddhism that Padmasambhava had founded. The Nyingma, or Red Hats, is the ancient tradition that originated with Guru Rinpoche and still survives today, including its profound Dzogchen practices. Atisha's new Sarma tradition generated 3 other compatible versions of the Buddha's teaching based on a series of different adepts, or Maha-Siddhas, who came later to refresh the Buddha's original teachings with their own advanced enlightened state. The Tibetan lineage included Marpa the translator from the 11th century, and his famous devotee and prolific poet Jetsun Milarepa taught the Tantra teachings that had descended from or were transmitted by the eccentric Naropa, known as the 6 yogas of Naropa. Naropa was a devotee of Tilopa, a practitioner of Anuttara Yoga Tantra, or highest Yoga Tantra, from which came the Kagyu, or White Hats tradition, with their practices of Mahamudra. Another variation came from Sakya Pandita, and who established the Sakya tradition with its lineage of Panchen Lamas and Tulkus. 2 centuries later, after the teachings had again degenerated via unenlightened teachers, even if sincere, there appeared the illustrious Tsong Khapa, who died in the 15th century, and whose teachings and powerful charismatic presence led to the formation of the Gelug, or Yellow Hat tradition. The Yellow Hat Gelug is the lineage from which the Dalai Lamas have descended, who are supposedly incarnations of the Bodhisattva of compassion, Avalokitesvara, or Chenrezig in Tibetan. The importance of these enlightened realizers, appearing within the lineage descending from Shakyamuni Buddha, cannot be overstated. They are not deities, although often depicted as such. They were actual living, breathing human beings who did the sadhana, or practices necessary to awaken to their innate Buddha nature. Plus, they had a very strong relationship with their own spiritual master, or lama, not merely a mental one where they simply studied sutras. They were of the practicing school, not the talking school. In any case, all of these schools are still expressions of the same enlightenment, or primordial awareness shared with Shakyamuni, the original Buddha, since it arises from our innate consciousness, or Buddha nature, pure, naked awareness, known as Rigpa. This is the same enlightened state that Avatar Adida calls the perfect knowledge of conscious light, or the bright, the revelation of the acausal, or real God. This book, In God's Company by Brad Reynolds, will review why and how these various adepts, or great gurus, have been so important in human history, and why they are still important today. That is, if you can learn to distinguish the real ones from the fake, the true, authentic adept from the false preacher, or less evolved spiritual teacher.
You can buy both of Brad's 2 recent paperback books, In God's Company and the Universal Tradition of Global Wisdom, on Amazon.com.
Now available as a Kindle ebook.